So, hey everybody, this is Petey from Spinner Rack, and we're talking about Idris Elba as Bloodsport. Now, this was announced as to a lot of buzz at the DC fandom, and I guess a replacement since I believe Will Smith wasn't able to do his Deadshot. So they decided to give us another character, and I think we talked about that earlier. But at the same time, it adds a lot of questions for me because Bloodsport was in a comic book, a Superman comic book, and it was his only. Well, no, he did show up later as another character in a whole new sort of character that I think was a racist sort of villain, that sort of thing. But they are bringing back Bloodsport. So let's go to a little bit of the history of Bloodsport and let's see what we can drum up about him. So let's close this guy up. Now, hold on, before we go on a little further, let's use that. To this. Let's go. Now, that said, I want to, I don't know, ultimately, let's see, go to discombobulated, aren't I? So work on 3 or 4 things at once. All right, so here's the issue that Bloodsport was introduced in. So not necessarily a copy of For the Punisher, but a reaction to the Punisher and the sort of Death Wish sort of characters. And you could see a little before image, but I think the Punisher had pretty big guns drawn by Klaus Janson. But this is going into a little before image, the huge sort of guns that you see Jim Lee sort of later do, and Rob Liefeld, of course, and then John Romita Jr. taking it to the next level with his enormous sized guns. So with this character, it seems like it's a one note sort of thing. But we'll get into him in a second. But let's stop this. Let's look at another sort of thing. Now, this is a Superman cover of issue 184. And if you notice, the bottom of it says a complete full-length novel, meaning that they usually, when they did this sort of thing, they weren't going to give you something where you had to come back the next week. DC was kind of selling you on, here, you buy this one story. You don't have to buy 3 or 4 different issues. You don't need to know what happened beforehand, didn't know what happened afterwards. And I guess this was sort of a sell for a lot of readers. You can see them do this up into the early 80s. And then in the mid 80s, when you can say John Byrne is on Superman, let's go back to that. Let's go back to this. And this issue would be similar to that, where basically, and John Byrne did this in his, I think there's only one, even though that character came back, but let's stick with the Fantastic Four. In the Fantastic Four, he would do an issue where the characters in it would not appear again. They wouldn't be like a return to this villain. There wouldn't be a multi-part story where this villain would be the next subplot for this. It would sometimes just be one story where you can come in the month, you read it, and then you can put it down, and you know this is not going to become the backstory to the next 12 issues. And I think that also helped to the element of what John Byrne was doing with Superman, to try to be inclusive with anyone. At some point, even though there'd be 2-parters, 3-parters, possible crossovers, At some point, there'd be single issue stories where you could just pick up, read, and move on. And ultimately, for the most part, Bloodsport wasn't used that much after that. I said again, yeah, I think the character sort of appeared as a female later, and then it turned into a white character who was, I think, a supremacist or something like that. But in this issue, and this one isn't just standard Superman versus a obviously some sort of Death Wish character, and his character is like he has ties to Vietnam. He has some issues that he's talking about within the issues. He obviously has some connections with someone in Metropolis, but ultimately, this isn't just your standard Superman versus that. As I said, this one turns into, if you go further into the book, it goes into starts off as a Jimmy Olsen story. And Jimmy Olsen is in the middle of this action. You realize it's going to be with Lucy Lane, and kind of playing up the way Jack Kirby would do Jimmy Olsen. But Jimmy Olsen was a star of his own book, but he would have a big cosmic sort of story and have Jimmy sort of be the beginning and end where Superman would take over the book, and then Jimmy would come back at the end and probably tie some loose ends up or be an integral part of the story. And this is no different. Obviously, Bloodsport comes in. He's got all these cool gadgets. Now the kitty is decided he has to go. You leaving? You staying? You should stay. And of course, he uses his classic signal watch to call Superman. And Superman, wait, you can't go this way. Which way are you going? Oh man, Kitty's going the other way. Going down? Okay. Hold on. There you go. Good job. So in this issue, and it says instead of having Superman, it says Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. It's sort of saying it's a Superman story. This obviously a story created by John Byrne, inked by Carl Kessel, and it introduces Maggie Sawyer in the story. And this sort of plays up something that went against something that's in the Superman movie. So in this one, obviously, we made this lunatic called Bloodsport, cool logo for him, and Superman sees it. And this is Superman facing the late 80s comic book sort of villains, which was characters with big, huge guns and huge body counts. So Superman on the front line, we understand, we have a hard time with Superman trying to deal with these sort of characters because it's Superman. How do you deal with someone who's just totally, totally whacked out, right? You can see the loss of human life, the effect on Superman. I'm not sure if I want to give away this whole story, so I'm going to say spoilers, and hopefully, if you don't want it revealed, you stop. Because in giving this is tough, because it is a complete novel story. There's a single story in here, and Byrne doesn't show. There's obviously Maggie Sawyer, the classic Maggie Sawyer, hard as nails Maggie, where you don't I didn't initially think she was butch. I just thought she was tough, and they sort of reveal some things, and there's Jimmy kind of out of the action in here. Jimmy's like, I gotta handle some things, and he's on the move, and at this point I think Byrne did some of the best winter coats that you can have in a book, and I think and Kessel also helped with that. As we go along, we get this tough scene where you see people dead and see people lying on the floor and Bloodsport going crazy. And here's somewhere the plot goes, and it keys you into what's going on. It says, me and Mickey, what our liberty, what your liberty with our lives now, huh? And that, what your liberty with our lives now. So, ultimately, this is a harder thing because Superman is going against this is what the Superman 2 movie sort of said, that Superman can't really handle a hostage situation because obviously with the loss of human life, Superman would just fold because, hey, he'd say, hey, either you give me the keys to the planet or I'll kill this woman. And Superman has to fold because he's Superman. He believes in life. And this is where Burns sort of says there's three main ways Superman can handle a hostage situation and not just fold immediately. So in this one, I think it's, I mean, people liken it to him saying something somewhere in the past. I'm not sure where it was. It was going to be a little less Mary Walk and a little more Clint Eastwood. And they were like, oh no, he's turned into Rambo. This scene sort of plays that up. So we have this standoff, this and we have the huge gun against the woman, and of course Superman shows you what he can do in this. And I'm not gonna show the rest of this. I'm gonna escape out of this. But this was a classic scene, and I've gone on about how this is a single issue thing. So I'm gonna say, as I stated before, it's very hard for well, we'll see, because he's not really a jokey character. He doesn't lend himself to humor. He basically is a solo act. His focus is about him and his brother Mickey. His name is Robert Dubois, and he keeps talking about how him and Mickey got their can blown off in Nam, and he's very, you know, he's very old school with the struggle with the Vietnam and how people are basically back home, relaxing. So ultimately, there's a hook to this because, as Jimmy Olsen figured out, um, Bloodsport doesn't have his can blown off. So that's where the plot lies. So once you get to it's emotional ending because Superman is kind of mortally wounded, unsuspectingly. He comes back to fight Bloodsport, who's just has the guns that he has are beyond anything we've ever seen. Like they're big, we have grenades on them, they have all this crazy stuff. And Jimmy Olsen comes in the end and stops it because Bloodsport's almost ready to blow up Metropolis, which Superman would survive, but how much of Metropolis would be left? Jimmy Olsen figures out what's the crux of this character, and that's what I'm saying. It's sort of a one-note thing. And since Byrne didn't have him come back with more guns and more tricks and this, that, and the other, there's also another subplot with Lex Luthor in it. So it's a very involved story, but it's a one-issue story, not a one-note, because there's a lot of levels to this villain, and he's a villain. He's not. Whatever reason he had, he's just diseased and has these issues. But it's a one-note thing. So if this character is now in jail and they need to utilize him, you have to find some interesting ways to use him in the movie, because he has this thing with his brother. How are you going to work this out? Where he has these skills, he could be cool, but you have to figure out how does he join the team, how do they keep him from losing it, and playing that up, and then you might have an interesting character. I don't think he should be in the third or fourth movie, but they can figure a cool way for him to continue to be what he was. We'll see. So I guess that's it. I didn't ultimately spoil the story. You should go out and read Superman 4. It's the start of the classic team of Byrne and Kessel doing Superman. It was issue 4 on. I think the last couple of issues, Kessel's off. I think it's either 18 or 19, something like that. No, it's all, I think 18. But it's a classic run between the two of them over a year of them being together. And they also did Legends. I think some of the press have incorrectly gave Carl Kessel co-creator status when he was just an inker on it. So ultimately, you should check it out before the movie and see how it jives up. But it's a movie, so they could just start from that point on where the reveal happens later. So we'll see. Spinner Rack out.